You're watching this video because you're struggling with flying on instruments, whether that's on Flight Simulator or in real life. I use Flight Simulator as a teaching tool. It's incredibly powerful, and I teach people on Flight Sim, whether it be VFR or IFR, doing PPL stuff, instrument rating stuff, even multi-engine piston stuff. And I see quite a few mistakes people make when learning to fly on instruments. And so here are 5 things you can do, 5 principles you can apply to dramatically increase your ability to fly an airplane. Number 1, stare at the attitude. And I'm going to tell you exactly how to stare at the attitude indicator. Attitude plus power equals performance. I want to maintain this heading of 242 and I want to maintain 2,000 feet. If I set 2,300 RPM and I keep the nose attitude just here and these 2 arrows pointing at each other, I will maintain 2,000 feet and the 242 heading. To confirm that, I check the altitude and the heading indicator. So rule 1, stare at the attitude indicator. Easiest way to get it done. Second rule, don't stare at what you're correcting or what you're changing. The exception to this rule is the attitude itself. Let me clarify. ATC tells me contact radar 130.1. Let's go ahead and change that without doing things properly. So 120.1 we said. So I'm going to go ahead. Okay, so 120.1. So 120 decimal 120.1 set. Aha. Look at that. I am 20 degrees off and I was in a 10-degree bank angle turn to the right, to the left. And thankfully I've got the aircraft relatively well trimmed, otherwise my altitude would have been gone as well. I'm going to flight freeze for the purposes of the demonstration, roughly straight and level, 242, 2,000 feet. And let's say they give us a frequency of 125.8. 125.8. So I'm looking at my arrows, I'm looking at my attitude indicator. I find the knob, visually I go back to the arrow and the tip of the nose. I check the current, so I'm 128, so that's 3 clicks to the left to go to 125. So I'm going to go back to the attitude, I'm looking at my nose and I'm looking at the arrow, and I'm going to click to the left 3 times to go to 125. 1, 2, 3. If the math is too hard, don't worry about it. Just turn it an X number of times and then we go back to it. 125. Let's say I did 1 too many. Okay. Back to the attitude. Correct it while looking at the attitude. Check the frequency. Excellent. 125. Next I need to do decimal 8. So I'm going to look back at the attitude indicator, make sure I've got what I want, check the decimal number. It's 0.5. So back to the attitude indicator. I need to go to the right. I don't know about how many. I'm going to say 10. So I'm going to go back to the knob, find the little knob, back to the attitude indicator, and I'm going to click it 10 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let's go back there. Ha! Okay, I'm going to need significantly more than that. Go back to the attitude indicator. I'm going to click it a bunch of times, and I'm not even counting. Okay. I'm going to go back from the attitude indicator to the number. Okay, we're getting somewhere. Back to the attitude indicator. Again, I'm not going to count. I'm just going to do it a few times. Back. We're getting close. I'm going to do about 5 times. Back to the attitude indicator. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Back to the thing. 1 too many. Back to the attitude. Back 1 click. Back to the thing. 800. Good. Back to the attitude indicator. Right, I'm going to now need to transfer it. I've selected the correct frequency, but I need to transfer it. I'm still looking at the attitude. I'm going to find the button. Back to the attitude. I'm going to click the button while looking at the attitude. I'm now going to check the active frequency. 125.8. That was a long process to talk through. Practice and doing it without talking it through is much, much faster. I'm going to do it for another frequency without talking. I'm going to say 122.8. So here goes. So I'm going to start flying now. I'll do it. I'll demonstrate it. So here I am flying along at 122.8. So see, that's how quick it can be with a little bit of practice and skill. Next, let's use small corrections. We're gonna go and fly to Cardiff. I just picked a random airport and I've set the CDI GPS direct. So I'm gonna start turning towards Cardiff. So here I am. I've turned inbound towards Cardiff. However, as you can see from the CDI, I'm not flying towards Cardiff. Well, I am flying towards it, but I'm not on the inbound course that I want. I'm to the left of it. Typical mistake I see a lot of people make is they'll make a very large turn to correct for this. The trick is small correction. Now we have a bit of a track diamond, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the heading just outside the heading bug and the tip of the arrow on the CDI. We're checking that the track diamond is to the right of the CDI. We check where the CDI is right now. It's on the outer right tip of the inner circle, and I'm just going to scan my attitude. Remember, attitude plus power equals performance. Keep this aligned and keep this here. And as long as these are aligned and this is here, we've got the correct heading and we should be getting a correction angle. So we wait a few seconds and now let's look back at the HSI. Aha! It has moved in the direction we want. So now we've got the small correction angle. It's small, it's slow, but the correction is happening. With a distance like we have now of 32 miles, I know that I'm going to rejoin it before we go abeam the point. Small corrections also applies to bank angles and pitch angles. So everything you do when it comes to corrections, we use small deltas, small changes. Next, let's talk about pitch power settings. Right now, I'm flying at 2,300 RPM, and I have the nose just below the 2.5 degrees at approximately 1.25 degrees, just as a rule of thumb. And I know that in this aircraft at 2,300 RPM, wings level, with a pitch attitude just below the 2.5 degrees, I'm going to be flying level. And I know this. What gives you level flight? What gives you cruise, climb, cruise descent, and VY, for example, so getting up in the air very quickly. So for me, I know that if I set the nose between just above the 7.5 degree pitch with full power, I'm going to climb VY, the best rate of climb. So we can see that between 7.5 degrees and 10 degree pitch, we're getting about 77, 75 knots. If I go to plus 10, probably get around 75 knots. So now we know that with these pitch power settings between 7.5 degrees and 10 degree pitch full power, I'm going to get VY. Learn these pitch power settings. They're going to help you a lot in terms of workload. If you set the pitch and you set the power and then you fly the aircraft, you can reduce your scan because you know where the airspeed is going to settle. Finally, trim is your best friend. Trim, 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 trim. If I can trim so I can let go of the yoke and the aircraft will maintain roughly level flights, my workload now becomes a lot easier. Trim is your best friend. I'm Tarek Merryface. I'll see you guys next time, and happy flying.